In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an intervention to go along with your PST plan. This video is being recorded in a training server. There are no real students or real data shown. Any likeness to a real student is purely coincidental. When you're creating your PST plan for students, on your Action Plan tab, when you're scrolling through entering the information, there is a question that asks you, I have placed an appropriate intervention on the student in Unified Insights. And then it continues to ask who that intervention progress monitoring is provided by and what is the frequency of that intervention. So where do I go to add that intervention? In order to create those interventions, what you're going to do is you're going to come over to Utility Apps and MTSS Interventions. Utility Apps, MTSS Interventions. When this page loads, what you are going to see first is your All Interventions tab. This is going to show you any active interventions that you currently have. And then you can also use these filters if you have several to search through to find the one you're needing. In order to create a new intervention, what you're going to do is come over to the intervention bank. This is where these filters will come in handy to find the one you are looking for. So I'm going to look through my filters here in the center. And first I'm going to look at my intervention levels and select Tier 3. I want you to notice that right now I have 290 intervention templates on the Alabama site. When I click on Tier 3 and then click out of it, it narrows it down to 121 Tier 3 intervention plans. The next thing I can do is look for the type. So I'm going to come over here to Filters and Intervention Types, and let's say I'm looking for something that is 6 through 12. So I'm going to click on that and then click outside of it. Whenever I am ready to use the intervention, I will click Use This Plan. If I need to know more about it first, I can click on Preview Plan, and I can read the description and look at any goals that may be included. Once I'm ready to create an intervention, I'm going to click Use This Plan. After clicking Use This Plan, my Start a New Intervention screen is going to pop up. I have 3 tabs that I need to address here before I can start an intervention. The first tab is my student. This is where I will add as many students as needed to this intervention. I don't have to create multiple interventions for each individual student. If I have 7 students that all need this exact intervention, I can place them all in this one intervention. Students can come and go as needed throughout the school year if they meet goals or complete the intervention. So my first step to find a student is just going to be to search for a last name. And when I find that student's name, I'm going to click Add Student. So I'm going to add a few students to this intervention. And I just continue that process. Once I've finished adding all of my students, my next tab is the Staff tab. Since I'm in a training server, I see User Admin 40 here, but you will see your name and your email when you are creating this intervention. And from here, you need to add in every staff member that you need to be able to open up this intervention and add in data. So you would search just like you did for your students, those staff members' names, and then click Add Staff. If for some reason you do not see those staff members' names populate, it could possibly be that those individuals have never logged into Unified Insights, so you'll need to have them log in first so the system can recognize them, and then their name should populate here. My next tab is going to be my schedule. To make it easier, what you'll want to do here is select your entire school year. This way you're not having to create multiple interventions as one ends and another needs to begin if it is the same, like if I'm using ELA 6 through 12, Critical Literacy and Writing. If I put an end date, I cannot adjust that end date. So I want to use the full school year so that any students that need this intervention at any point in the school year. I'm not having to create a new intervention each time. So I'm going to choose my start date as my first day of school, and I'm going to choose my end date as my last day of school. You'll notice once I've gone through these first 3 tabs, I can now click Start Intervention. So that's what I'm going to do. Now my intervention is actually brought up, and I see this notification that I've successfully started the intervention. I see here the details of my intervention, including my date range that I've chosen, which again is the full year. I can see the number of enrolled students and the number of assigned staff. If at any point I need to update the students that are included in this by removing a student that has completed or withdrawn from this intervention, or if I have new students that have been identified as needing this intervention, I can do that by coming over here to the Manage Intervention option, and I will just add in additional students. I can also add in additional staff members. If James was just recently identified as needing this intervention and I needed to add in his classroom teacher as a staff member, I can do both of those things. Once a student has been in the intervention and they might have met their goal, or I need to withdraw them, I can change each student's status individually and choose if they have met their intervention goal or if they need to be withdrawn because they did not meet the goal and we misdiagnosed. Any changes I make here, I'll want to save those. The next portion of my intervention page is going to show me my meeting completion, my attendance, and my student observations. These dashboards will start to fill out as soon as I put in data for my students. The next place I have here is my notes. This is where I can add in any notes. I have a text box to put in any formatting I need. I can also link a document from a shared file system, or I can upload an image. I can choose to make this public or private, and then I can also link it to a student if it deals with that student. And when I save that, that note is now going to be in a running list down this page, and any staff members that I've added can also comment and reply on my public notes so that we can have a running discourse for this student. The next portion of my intervention page is where I enter in all of the data for students. The first thing I want to point out is that you have a selected meeting drop-down box. The date should default to today's date if it falls within that range that I put in, which was August 1st to the end of May, so I'm defaulting to the day I'm making this video. I can navigate to any other day in my date range and enter in data for any of those dates in the past. I cannot enter in data for dates in the future that have not happened yet. So if I wanted to enter in data for my first date in this range, I can select that date. To enter in data, I'm going to use these tabs down here below that selected meeting. It's important to understand that all of the data within an intervention is connected to the date I have chosen in this drop-down box. The first tab I have here is Student Overview. This is going to give me a card for each student with their data, and I can see this populate after I start to put in data. The first place I'm going to actually put information in is going to be attendance. I am putting in attendance for the date in this drop-down box. I can choose to mark attendance individually, or I also can choose to select the students that I need or select them all and use bulk options and set attendance. The time attended is not required. The next tab is the Observations tab. This is where I'll go in and mark observations. These are not required, but they are suggested to be used to give you an extra layer of data. You have the same option here to mark as needed, or you can select all and enter in bulk observations. The next tab is the Goals tab. When you have goals, you will see the target score here. It may have an actual numeric score in some cases, or it may just say grade level skills. You have a blank cell to be able to put in a score. So if you are using a program or something within your meeting with the student and your student receives a score, be it text or numeric. If you see alphanumeric there, then you can put in text or a numeric score. When you put that in, it is going to save that for you. And as you continue to put in data across the intervention, your total change and growth for that student will be tracked for you. Remember that I'm doing all of this for Thursday, August 1st. So I want to point out that I have put in data. If I move to Friday, August 2nd, I want you to notice that my data appears to be gone. No observations have been marked and no attendance have been marked. But what that means is that I actually now have a blank slate for Friday, August 2nd, and I can mark attendance for these students for this new day. I can mark observations for this new day. And I can also put in goal information for this new day. And notice it is automatically marking or calculating that change and growth for that student. So I put 73 here on August 2nd. If I were to use my arrows and go back to August 1st, notice I have that old score. It's saved for me. It is just on the date I entered it. When I come back to my student overview cards now, you'll notice that I do have data populated. James is the only one I entered in score for a goal data. And so I see that populated here. If you have more than one goal, you can also change which goal you're viewing in your cards. As you are going through the intervention, you'll probably have a need to print out the data. And to do that, you can print a report for each student. There currently is not a way to do this in math, but it's something that is going to be added in the future. So I'm going to click on those three dots and click Print Report. I can choose which goals I want to print, any notes, and then I can choose Dates with Data. It's going to give me a nice report here where I see the students' overall progress, every date that I have put in data, including scores, and then I can see my information here about the score, the time period that the student has received that score. I just did the first 2 days, so it's very small on this chart, but if you were doing more time included, which you probably would be, you would see the scores take up more time, and then any notes that are included would be listed below as well. So one thing that I mentioned is that a student can be completed and removed and then a new student added if needed. So if we had our next PST meeting and we have identified a new student that needs this intervention, and we've also identified that James no longer needs this intervention, I'm going to come up here to Manage Intervention. I'm going to add my new student, and then I'm going to find James, and I'm going to say that he met his intervention goal, and I'm going to save that. So now what's going to happen is James, since he has been marked complete, he's going to go all the way to the bottom of my list here. And if I were to try to go in and put in attendance for students, I want you to notice that now James is grayed out. It lets me know that he's no longer in this intervention, but I can still view his data at any point. And now Candace has been added, and I can start putting in data for her from this point forward. So our students can come and go as needed. That's why it's very helpful to go ahead and create a start and end date of your school year so you're not having to create new interventions each time. When you are finished with this intervention completely, if you need to complete that intervention, you're going to come over here to Manage Intervention. Every student would need to have a complete or withdrawn status, so you would need to update those statuses either individually or you can also do that in bulk. And once you do that, your complete intervention button will turn blue and it will ask you for a short narrative before you can complete that intervention. Anytime you are finished working on your intervention and you use this arrow to get out of it, it is going to take you back to your All Interventions page, and you'll be able to use your filters or searches to find the intervention you are looking for here. And then when you need to enter in more data, all you'll need to do is open it back up by clicking on it.